requested it. Now, I'll give the floor to Tanzania.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for organizing this very important meeting. Chair, before I go into the factors causing price volatility and giving the Tanzanian experience, I would like to talk about private sector investment and the question of land grabbing, which has been recurring here and there. Let me tell you that in Tanzania we have decided to involve the private sector to come into agriculture, because we have of late realized that much as most of the agriculture is done by the by smallholders, we still think, and we have seen that the private sector has been lagging behind, has been not involved in production, in service providing, in processing of crops. So we think that now it's time for the private sector to be involved. But how do we do this? And I've been noting that people have a misconception that the involvement of the private sector leads to land grabbing. Land grabbing is not, and I repeat, our policy in Tanzania. We do not intend to invite private investment, be it from outside the country or within the country, because private investment does not necessarily mean from outside the country. There is private investment which is basically within the country. But private investors, according to our policies, is not going to replace smallholders, and that's our stand. What we intend to do here, and what we are trying to do, is to make sure that the private sector comes in on a private-public partnership. And if you like, I could add the fourth P, which my colleague from Mozambique has added, so that the two groups, the private sector, the farmers, work together. And we believe that the private sector has more potential to lift the small farmers to go into production of crops and lift them from subsistence to commercial farming. So land grabbing actually is not an issue in our country, because we use our existing land laws to make sure that the smallholders still retain their land while giving land to private investors from in and outside the country. So land grabbing, I repeat, Chair, is not really an issue in Tanzania. Having said that, let me now quickly go to what we think are the causes of global food price volatility. Chair, the problem of food price started in 2008 when food prices globally rose to unprecedented levels. They continued to climb and stayed relatively high until mid-2011, when prices considerably exceeded 2008 levels. Many factors influence food price volatility, and these include agriculture and energy policy, commodity prices, market speculation, extreme weather events, rising global demand, and falling surplus stocks. To address this, there is a need to increase agriculture production and improvement in food distribution. If this is not adhered to, the world will have trouble feeding a growing population in the next 2 decades, and much less ending global hunger. Now, one of the causes is the global food market. Much of the global increase in food prices items from staple grains, which in some countries can represent more than half of calorie intake. Rice, maize, in some countries they call corn, and wheat comprising 2/3 of that number. Because grains also represent a major food source for livestock, higher grain prices have contributed to higher dairy and meat prices. According to the World Bank, global wheat, corn, and sorghum prices increased more than 70% between June and December 2010. Demand will require increasing cereal production by an additional 1 billion tons, up from more than 2 billion tons currently, and more than doubling meat production from current levels. I'll quickly go to the second cause, which is weather and climate change. Mr. Chairman, disasters framework such as drought and flooding can cause catastrophic damage to crops. A string of recent bad weather in 2010 and 2011 and related disasters such as wildfires in some of the world's biggest food exporters, such as Russia, Australia, have helped raise prices to record levels. Climate change is forecast to spur more crop damaging weather events and impact water supplies and the availability of arable land, especially in the developing world. Now, the third aspect is trade policy. Export controls can disproportionately impact import-dependent countries. According to the UN's World Food Programme, over 40 countries in 2008 imposed some form of export ban in an effort to increase domestic food security. Many of our economists say hoarding, particularly in some rice-producing countries, exacerbated the 2008 food prices. Following a 2010 drought and wildfires, Russia limited exports of wheat, and wheat prices more than doubled, according to the World Bank. The fourth aspect is food security and policy implications. I'm constrained with time. Thank you. The most important, Chair, the most important message I wanted to put across was PPP and stressing that it does not mean land grabbing. Thank you.